Welcome back to Bo and Kirsten's Backcountry Kitchen. Today we're going to be making elk steaks. When I first married Bo, I had no idea what to do with the game meat that he brought home. And sometimes it's kind of tricky to find a good recipe, but this is an awesome one that is so easy that you can do at home. So today we're going to start with elk tenderloin. You can use pretty much any kind of nice cut that you get off of your elk. You could also do this with deer or moose if you want to. I would always put just the more gamey the meat, more garlic. So with our elk tenderloin, we're gonna just pull it out of the package here. And then I'm gonna put each piece into a different Ziploc. So I have 2 steaks here. 3/4 of a pound, half of that is a third? No, that's wrong. A little more than a third of a pound each on these steaks. All right, into their own separate Ziploc to get started. And they are completely thawed out. You can do this frozen as well, but I prefer to thaw it out first and then add our marinade so the marinade can get going immediately. So now to make our quick marinade, we are going to add everything into a food processor. So here I have about 6 to 7 tablespoons of oil. I have a tablespoon of both dried basil and dried parsley. I have about a half a teaspoon of white ground pepper. You could also substitute black pepper as well. I have 2 cloves of garlic. If your meat is a little more gamey, then do 3. Or if you have small cloves, then do 3, which is what I did. This is 2 tablespoons of soy and 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, or whatever it is that you call it in your neck of the woods. Worcestershire sauce, or whatever. Also, I have half a lemon, so I'm gonna be squeezing about a tablespoon of fresh lemon into that. And I did drop a seed, so I'll pull that out. All right. So now that we have all of that added together, we're gonna go ahead and blend it up. And it doesn't need to be a smooth puree, it just needs to be fine enough that everything kind of comes together. All right, now that we have that blended, we're gonna open up both of our bags and pour half into each over top of our elk steak. All right, so half goes in here, and then half goes in this one. Today we're gonna be using a sous vide. So I'm gonna let my steaks sit around for about an hour, and then we're gonna put it into the sous vide. In the meantime, while my steaks are marinating, I want to heat up my sous vide to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. A quick tip, and if you've never used a sous vide before, you don't have to start the water with cold. So I run my tap as hot as it will go, and then after it's as hot as it'll go, I put it in my bucket and then I set my temperature. So it only just has to heat it up 10 degrees or however big the difference is. So it's just regular water. I've got my sous vide. It doesn't have to be in a special container. This is a popcorn bucket. It's just a plastic bucket, but something to keep in mind is that you have super hot water sitting on your countertop. So if you do have a countertop that will burn, you want to put a hot pad underneath. All right, so I'm gonna let these marinate, and then we will throw them into our sous vide in just a few minutes. All right, our steaks have been resting for about an hour. We're gonna put them into the sous vide. You have 2 different ways of doing this. Number 1, you could use a vacuum sealer, but because I have a marinade in there, it's pretty liquidy, it gets a little bit tricky with sucking the air out and leaving the liquid in. So what I'm gonna do is the Ziploc submersion method in the sous vide. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna submerge that meat all the way down in there, leave a little hole in your Ziploc to let all the air out. And then you're gonna just press all that extra air out as you submerge it completely, then zip it up. With a Ziploc, they have a tendency to move around, so I'm gonna just clip those to the side with a clothespin. So we'll get both of those put in there, and then we will leave it for 1 to 4 hours. Pretty easy. All right, if you are new to sous vide, at this point, the steaks are cooked. You could eat them That kind of freaks some people out. Sous vide is kind of a pasteurization process, so it doesn't cook as hot as you'd expect it to be if you were to pan sear it. If you don't have a sous vide, you can read up online about how to do this without a sous vide, but I would recommend just pan searing them, or you could sear on either side and then finish it off in the oven instead with this marinade recipe. So we have been going for about 90 minutes on these. We're gonna pull them out. We're gonna drain out all the extra marinade into a dish, and then if you wanna add it to any gravy later, you can definitely do that. I usually pair steaks with potatoes, like a mashed potato or something. So I like to keep any drippings that I might have left over. All right, just add them to that bowl. And we're gonna just add these onto a paper towel. Toss your Ziploc, and same with the other one. While we are letting these steaks kind of rest and dry, we're gonna add some butter to our pan and get it heating up so that we can sear them on either side. Like I said, they're completely cooked at this point, but they look so much more appealing if you get a nice sear on either side, especially if you're feeding them to people that have never sous vide anything before. Just a tiny bit more appetizing looking. All right, so let's go ahead and get our pan heated up here. I'm gonna cook our steaks in butter. I'm gonna add about 2.5 tablespoons of butter to my pan. And then we're also gonna be putting a lid on just to control our oil popping. I always like to spread my butter around as the pan's heating up, just so I don't burn my pan with it being dry. All right. Back to our steaks. We're gonna just pat them dry with some paper towels. You may need more than one, like I did. If you put wet steaks into a hot pan, you can imagine what will happen, right? It will pop all over. So that's the reason for drying them off, is just to get that extra moisture off so you don't really cause yourself a grease fire. All right. Butter's almost melted here. We're just gonna give that a few more minutes to get nice and toasty, and then we'll throw our steaks in. Our butter is now melted and our pan is ready for our steaks. You can use tongs for this if you want to kind of protect your hands, but I'm feeling daring today. We're gonna let these steaks get a nice sear. So we're gonna cook them for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side. So we're gonna add that lid. Just a couple things to take note of. If you want your steaks to be more on the rare side, you're gonna cook them in your sous vide at about 125. If you want them to be more on a well side, you're gonna go up to 135. Today we did 130, and that's a pretty good medium when it's seared on both sides for 4 minutes. So this is my preference. I like my meat nice medium, where it's still pink in the middle, but it's not mooing anymore. So this is my preference for sure. So we're gonna let those sear for just a few more minutes, flip them, and then we're gonna show you what it looks like. Oh yeah, those look so good. Those are thick steaks. We're gonna turn that heat off. These are done. They have a beautiful sear on them now. If you have thick steaks like I do, you could choose to sear all 4 sides and then just do it for 2 minutes on each side instead. Or you can, if you would like to skip searing altogether in a pan, you could do where you just use like a butane torch and get that almost like you would do to a creme brulee. All right, let's cut them open and see. I'm probably gonna burn myself. They're flaming. Get that out. It's so easy, and look at that beautiful medium. Still pink in the middle. Beautiful marinade. So as you can see, we have this beautiful medium now. I would recommend letting it rest for 5 minutes after you pull it out of the pan before you cut into it, just to really let those juices set in there. But look at this beautiful, easy medium. It was so simple. It didn't take any brain power to get the timing right. I didn't have to poke it to see if it was the right texture in the middle. And it is so yummy. So if you enjoyed today's video, we'd love to do some more sous vide for you or more cast iron. Let us know what you want to see us cook. We'll catch you next time.